My name is Claire Mitchell, and I was 41 years old when I sat frozen in a cold examination room, watching my doctor close my file and look at me like I was a problem to be solved. "Frankly, Claire," she said, not even meeting my eyes, "this pregnancy was a mistake." I remember the crinkle of the paper, gown beneath me. I remember the hum of the fluorescent lights. I remember thinking, I must have misheard her. But I hadn't. Some details in this story have been changed for privacy, and if you've experienced pregnancy loss or trauma around motherhood, please take care of yourself while listening. That appointment had been supposed to be a celebration. After 11 years of trying. After 4 rounds of treatments that drained our savings and nearly broke our marriage. After giving up, truly, completely giving up, I had finally seen those 2 pink lines. But Dr. Patterson didn't see a miracle. She saw liability. "Your eggs at this age," she continued, flipping through papers. "The risks are astronomical. I'm honestly surprised this happened naturally, and given your history, I'd strongly encourage you to consider your options carefully." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her that I had prayed for this baby, that I had cried myself to sleep more nights than I could count, mourning children I'd never hold. But instead, I just nodded. I took the pamphlets she handed me, and I walked out into the cold February air, feeling like someone had stolen something precious right out of my hands. That night, I came home to find my husband David sitting at the kitchen table. His mother had called. I could tell by the look on his face. "So I talked to my mom," he said, not looking up. "She reminded me about what happened to her sister, how she almost died having a baby at 39. I set my purse down slowly. "David, I saw the doctor today." "I know," he interrupted. "She called me too." I froze. "What?" "Dr. Patterson called me this afternoon. She wanted to make sure I understood the risks you'd be taking." Something cold crawled up my spine. She called my husband, without my permission. David finally looked at me, and his eyes were red. "Claire, she said you could die. She said the baby could have serious problems. She said." "I don't care what she said." The words exploded out of me. "This is my body. This is our baby. How could you?" "Maybe she's right." I stopped. The room went silent. "Maybe this wasn't meant to happen," David said quietly. "Maybe we shouldn't have kept trying. Maybe this pregnancy really was a mistake." Those words. From my husband. The man who had held me through every negative test. The man who had whispered, "Someday," against my hair when I was too broken to believe it. That man just called our miracle a mistake. I didn't sleep that night. If this story is speaking to something in your heart, I hope you'll stay with me through what comes next. I need to go back, though. Back to where this really started. I grew up in a small town outside of Atlanta, the oldest of 4 kids. My mama had me at 19, my youngest brother at 32. In my family, Bobbies just happened. They were expected. So when I married David at 28, everyone assumed kids would follow quickly. "Give me a grandbaby," my mother-in-law, Patricia, would say at every holiday dinner. "You're not getting any younger," she'd remind me on my birthdays. At first, I laughed it off. Then the months turned into years. The years turned into a decade. And that laugh turned into something that tasted like shame every time it left my throat. We tried everything. Timing, tracking, temperature charts. Then came the specialists. Then the procedures. Then the bills that made me physically sick to open. Nothing worked. And somewhere along the way, something shifted in my marriage. David started working later. Coming home quieter. We stopped talking about Bobbies altogether. We just existed. Side by side, but somehow miles apart. When I turned 40, I made a decision. I was done. Done with the hope. Done with the heartbreak. Done with the constant feeling that my body had failed me. I threw away the ovulation tests. Canceled my next appointment. told David we should start looking at other ways to build a family. He agreed. We even started researching adoption. And then, 6 months later, I woke up nauseous. I thought it was stress, maybe a stomach bug. But when it didn't go away after a week, something made me dig through the bathroom cabinet. I found one last pregnancy test shoved in the back. Expired, probably. But I took it anyway. Just to rule it out. Just to prove to myself that hope was officially dead. But when those 2 lines appeared, I dropped to my knees on the bathroom floor and sobbed. David found me there 20 minutes later. He cried too. We held each other and laughed and made plans and picked out names. For 3 perfect days, we were the happiest we'd been in years. Then I made the appointment with Dr. Patterson. And everything started to fall apart. After David said what he said that night in the kitchen, I locked myself in the bathroom for 2 hours. When I finally came out, he was asleep on the couch. The next morning, neither of us spoke. He went to work. I called my sister. "Claire, something about this doesn't feel right," she said. "Since when does a doctor call a patient's husband without consent? That's not normal." She was right. It wasn't normal. But when I tried to bring it up with David, he shut me down. "She was just trying to help us make an informed decision," he said. "And honestly, my mom agrees with her." There it was again. His mother. Patricia had never liked me. Oh, she smiled at Thanksgiving. Complimented my cooking at Christmas. But there was always something behind her eyes when she looked at me. Something measuring. Something cold. As the years passed without a baby, that coldness had grown. "David's brother has 3 kids already," she'd say. "Maybe some women just aren't meant to be mothers." Those words had cut me so deep I still had the scars. And now, I was starting to wonder just how involved she was in all of this. Just then, something else occurred to me. Dr. Patterson's office was across town. I'd found her through my insurance network. So how did Patricia know so much about what she'd said? David had barely told me anything about the phone call. But his mother seemed to know every detail. When I asked David about it, he got defensive. "My mom's just worried about me, about us. Can't you understand that?" But how did she know what the doctor said, David, word for word? He didn't answer. He just grabbed his keys and left. I was alone again. And I was starting to feel like there were people in my life actively working against this pregnancy. The next few weeks were a blur. I found a new doctor, Dr. Amara Williams, who specialized in pregnancies over 40. She reviewed my chart, ran her own tests, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Claire, some of the notes in your file from Dr. Patterson don't match your actual results." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean your risk factors were overstated. Significantly. Your blood work, your hormone levels, everything looks much better than she indicated. You're not low risk, but you're certainly not the lost cause she made you out to be." I felt the room spin. Why would she do that? Dr. Williams hesitated. "I can't speak to her motivations, but I will say this, I've heard your mother-in-law's name before." I went cold. "Patricia Mitchell donates to a specific organization in our community, one that has some strong opinions about pregnancy and age. Dr. Patterson has spoken at their events." I couldn't breathe. Was my mother-in-law somehow connected to my doctor? Had she been working behind the scenes this whole time? When I got home, David was there. Waiting. His face was pale. "My mom called," he said. "She heard you switched doctors." How did she hear that? He didn't answer. "David, how did she know?" He ran his hands through his hair. "Because Dr. Patterson told her." The room went silent. "They're friends, Claire, old friends. From some committee they both serve on. I didn't know until." "Until when?" He looked at the floor. "Until my mom asked her to be your doctor." Every moment suddenly made sense. The dismissiveness, the immediate phone call to my husband, the terrifying statistics that turned out to be exaggerated. Patricia had planted her own person in my medical care. She tried to end my pregnancy through fear and manipulation. And my husband had let it happen. "Did you know?" I whispered. "Did you know this whole time?" "Not all of it," David said, his voice breaking. "I swear, Claire, I didn't know until this week. She told me she was just trying to protect me, protect us. She said she was worried you'd die like her sister almost did." "And you believed her?" "I didn't know what to believe. You and I haven't really talked in years, Claire. We've been going through the motions." I didn't. He stopped. His face crumpled. "I didn't know how to fight for something I wasn't sure you still wanted." I sat down heavily on the couch. My legs wouldn't hold me anymore. "I wanted this baby more than I've ever wanted anything," I said, "and you let your mother try to take that from me." David dropped to his knees in front of me. I know, and I will spend the rest of my life making this right if you let me." But I didn't know if I could let him. I didn't know if there was anything left to save. That night was the lowest point of my entire life. I lay in bed, hands on my stomach, talking to a baby I was terrified I might lose. Not to miscarriage, but to the people who were supposed to love me most. I thought about leaving, packing a bag and going to my sister's, raising this child alone. Because how could I ever trust David again? How could I ever sit across from Patricia at a holiday table, knowing what she'd tried to do? I didn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Right then, something shifted. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was maternal instinct. But I realized that if no one else was going to fight for this baby, I would. Even if I had to do it alone. The next morning, I made calls. I filed a formal complaint against Dr. Patterson for contacting my husband without consent. I called my insurance company. I documented everything. My sister helped me find a patient advocacy lawyer. And when David came home that night, I sat him down and laid out exactly what was going to happen. "Your mother is no longer welcome in our lives until she acknowledges what she did. I need you to choose me and this baby, or her." David's face went through a dozen emotions. Then he nodded. "You and this baby, always." I wanted to believe him. But trust doesn't come back overnight. Over the next few months, things changed slowly. David started therapy. So did I. Eventually, we started going together. We learned to actually talk again. About fear, about loss, about all the things we'd buried to survive the infertility years. Dr. Patterson's practice came under review after my complaint. It turned out I wasn't the only woman she'd treated this way. 3 other patients over 40 came forward with similar stories. Her medical license was suspended pending investigation. And Patricia, she tried everything to worm her way back in. She sent letters, left voicemails, even showed up at our house once. But David held the line. For the first time in our marriage, he chose me. Fully, without hesitation. I wish I could say it erased all the pain. It didn't. Some wounds take longer to heal. But it was a start. My pregnancy wasn't easy. There were scares. There were long nights in the hospital. There were moments I was certain I would lose everything. But Dr. Williams was with me every step of the way. She treated me like a person, not a statistic. She celebrated every milestone. And when complications did arise, she explained my options honestly and let me make my own choices. That's what medical care should be. If you're facing something similar, please talk to your healthcare provider, one who truly respects you. On October 14th, at 3:47 in the morning, I became a mother. Her name is Grace. She weighed 6 pounds, 4 ounces. She had David's eyes and my stubborn chin. And when they placed her on my chest, I understood for the first time why I'd fought so hard. She was worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. David was there. He cut the cord. He cried harder than I did. And when he held her for the first time, he whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." I'm not going to pretend everything was perfect after that. Postpartum depression hit me harder than I expected. The trauma of what Patricia had done didn't just disappear because we had a happy ending. Some nights I still woke up furious. Some days I still grieved the years I spent thinking I was broken. But I had help. I had a therapist who understood. I had a support group for mothers over 40. I had my sister, who drove 4 hours every other weekend just to hold the baby so I could sleep. Healing isn't linear, but it's possible. David and I are still married. We're not the same people we were before. Honestly, that's probably a good thing. We communicate now. We fight sometimes, but we fight fair. And we both know what we almost lost. Patricia has never met Grace. Maybe one day, if she truly takes responsibility and gets help, we'll revisit that. But right now, my job is protecting my daughter. Even from family. Especially from family. If there's one thing this journey taught me, it's this. No one gets to decide what your body is capable of except you, and a medical team that respects you. Not your mother-in-law. Not a biased doctor. Not even a husband who loves you, but has lost his way. Your story is yours. And sometimes the people trying to stop you from writing it are the ones closest to you. That's the hardest lesson. But it's also the most important. Grace is 2 years old now. She's wild and loud and absolutely fearless. She climbs everything. She laughs at her own jokes. She still wakes up too early, and she refuses to eat anything green. She's perfect. And I was 41 years old when someone called her a mistake. But she's the best thing that ever happened to me. If you made it to the end of this story, I hope you know that you're not alone. Whatever season of motherhood you're in, waiting, hopping, grieving, healing, your journey matters. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what's one thing you wish someone had told you about your journey to motherhood? And if this story touched you, please consider subscribing so we can keep sharing stories like this one. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. And thank you for reminding me that our stories deserve to be told.